As William Clouston is here from the Social Democratic Party. William, very good morning to you.
Good to be here.
We don't like to suffer in silence, you and I.
No, well, we don't, do we?
And we don't suffer in silence, but a lot of people sort of have to. But imagine if you are a shop owner in this country in 2023, it's September the 13th, and here you are wondering whether today is going to be the day that somebody comes into your shop and either ruins you, ruins the shop, or ends up hurting somebody in quite a bad way.
It's this epidemic of lawlessness and shoplifting is out of control now. Certain categories of crime.
Totally.
Crime in the big cities are illegal.
Yeah.
If you look at the clean-up rates for things like bicycle theft, less than 1%. Nothing. It's basically legal.
Right.
The shoplifting thing it's like a post-pandemic explosion if you look at the figures. And may be to do with data collection to some extent, but the large retailers even are saying that it's so bad that it affects the viability of major stores. Primark,
right,
talking about people walking out with goods to the value of £250, just walking out, and it's because the basic cause is that the criminal knows that very little will happen. Very little. The criminals are emboldened. They feel able to walk into someone's premises and loot it. Some of the videos looting drinks from, say, the Co-op stores in South London.
Very brazen.
Totally brazen.
Yeah.
And they don't even bother to hide their faces because they know very, very little is going to happen.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, it's the ineffectiveness not only of the security people there, because the limits of what they are willing to do to put their own lives on the line, because some of them have been stabbed. The limitations of CCTV, because you can film people doing stuff, but if you don't find them or punish them, they don't care.
You've got to punish them. They've got to feel it's a calculation of crime, isn't it? It's a calculation. Will I get away with it? And obviously this incident in Peckham, I want to talk generally rather than about this particular case, but if you're a small shop owner in a local area and you're getting looted, or people walk out with goods they haven't paid for, what do? You might not be trained. You're not trained to apprehend people. You haven't received no training. You're just trying to protect your business.
Right.
And then, of course, it's a spark, and there's a sort of intercommunal aspect of conflict here. And I'm very worried about that. When I was younger, when I was a student in Birmingham, I lived in Handsworth the first year I was there. And I lived there for a year, and then I moved to North Birmingham. But in the year that I was there was a spark on Lascelles Road. A man was arrested, ended up in an orgy of rioting and violence, and sadly 2 brothers were burnt alive in a post office.
Right.
And it's always remained with me.
Yeah. Senseless violence.
Senseless violence. Yeah. Tragedy. And it was my post office. I used it. It was very sad. I think you've got to be very careful with this. Make sure it doesn't escalate, and please leave these things to the police. The police will go through an incident like this.
They will, but on the other hand, at the time, and we've got the video footage of 2 incidents which we can show you now. One is the initial incident of the woman. Basically, the story seems to be that she wanted a refund for something that she'd bought. Yeah. They said, we can't give you a refund, but you can have goods to the same value. She then went round the shop and basically grabbed loads and loads of stuff, making out that she... this is actually the second video. This is her trying to leave the shop with loads of stuff, and this is him trying to restrain her. He's been accused, the shop owner, of being a little bit over the top. But there's an earlier piece of footage where it shows her actually attacking him, where she would appear to be hitting him with some kind of implement as he tries to restrain her further. And so the situation is that he's trying to call the police aren't there. So you're right to say
he's in a terrible dilemma, Mike, because what does he do? Does he
can't let her leave with the stuff, right?
Yeah, does he just watch people? Word gets round, you can go to the store and just take things. So you can't have that. As I say, people need to be calm. The trouble is, in the era of social media, things can get whipped up very, very quickly, and everyone takes sides. And you notice on the sewer that is Twitter, people have been taking sides, according to racial allegiance.
Well, of course they have. Because they're
like
claiming
O.J. Simpson
that he's racist. He hands off black women. Can we see the other video? There's a video where she is attacking him, which we haven't seen yet. Which there is as well, which is at the beginning, the first instance. Here it is here. This is where she basically starts attacking him, and she's hitting him repeatedly, and he's not responding. He's just trying to shield himself from it. Yeah. And so that's the context as well, which Twitter often misses.
And then people clip tweets, don't they? Clip footage to suit their own agenda. Yeah. And then you end up with a large protest outside the store, and it all escalates. Just please.
Well, suddenly they were producing placards. And you go, well, where did the placards come from?
Leave it to the police. The police will decide whether the person was guilty of taking things out without asking. They'll decide whether the shop owner acted disproportionately. But poor old shop owners are in a real...
But what's he going to do today? Are you going to open the shop and wait for the backlash? Are you going to wait and see? We're going to show you another video now, which is actually a different shop in a different part of southeast London. This is in a place called Woolwich, apparently. And check this out, right? This is a sort of mob scene of people coming into a shop, attacking the people that run the shop. It's a horrible thing to watch. So we would ask you, if you're, you know, of a nervous disposition, you should look away now. But there's people punching each other, kicking each other, the people in the shop trying to defend themselves. Meanwhile, there are other people just lifting stuff off the shelves and putting it under their jumpers and walking out with it.
What are we going to become?
What is this?
What are we going to become like?
Imagine if you're even in a shop with one of your kids or something.
In the United States, they're armed. Shop owners are armed, and regularly you'll see people trying to hold shops up and getting shot, and that's the sort of chaos that you've got there.
Yeah.
Yet in other parts of the world, you know, South Korea, for instance, shops don't even have attendants. It's honesty.
Yeah.
You know, I've just spent 2.5 weeks in Orkney on holiday, and there are honesty stores all over the island. There's a bakery quite close to us. It's just honestly, you walk in,
you buy stuff and leave the money.
Just leave it in the box, and that's a high trust society.
Yes.
And I worry we're becoming a very low trust, disorderly society.
But it's not just about trust, it's about opportunism, isn't it? It's about people who want to have no rules, who don't care. I mean, these are the very people who, by the way, would be the ones who suffered if it was a survival of the fittest, because they haven't got any money, a lot of them, and they would be the ones that would actually be left destitute on the street.
Yeah, and
if you wanted to go into some kind of Mad Max, you know, futuristic world where only people who could afford to have armoured cars could drive on the road, and only people who could afford an AK-47, you know what I mean? Yeah, that would be the situation.
But that's what some of us worry that we're heading to. You know, gated communities, disorderly contract. The public realm is becoming. I mean, it starts literally. You can see it. You can see when you go into a town or a city. You can see if it's looked after. You can see if it's orderly.
Yeah.
You know, I've moaned for years about the fact that half of our towns and cities smell of skunk.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't used to be like that.
Well, if you go down to Peckham, I've driven through Peckham on many occasions. I don't spend a lot of time down there, but I have been there. You know, it's quite a vibrant community, but it's a very different place at night than it is during the day.
Yeah,
you know,
I bet you.
And so parts of, you know, lots of our cities are like that. Where my daughter, when she was living in London, had friends who lived in Peckham. She would go there, but I would urge her never to spend too much time there at night, because getting back from somewhere like that is not an easy thing to do.
I'd have family member that lived there briefly in a couple of months, heard gunshots.
Yeah.
You know, this is becoming...
It's not a rare thing anymore.
No.
And it's not a rare thing to see somebody with a gun.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not a rare thing to see somebody with a machete.
But once the authorities lose control of the public realm, the streets, the shops, when this starts, it's very difficult to see how it doesn't get worse. That's the trouble. So, you know, law and order is going to be a massive thing at the next election, Mike.
Totally.
Massive thing.
Because all of it has gone, from the beginning of the arrest process through to the police stations all being shut down, through to the CPS being not fit for purpose, through to not enough courtroom space. Because
rainbow laces.
Loads of courtrooms have been shut down. And that was before they discovered they all had aerated concrete in them. You know, so, you know, people turning up on 7 police officers turning up on your door because you made a tweet that they didn't like.
That's the crazy world we're living in. And yet this sort of thing's happening.
Yeah, Andy in Blackpool says this. In relation to the Peckham shop incident, people seem to forget every person in this country can use reasonable, proportionate and necessary force under common law to defend themselves. Also, Section 3 of the Criminal Law Act and the Prevention of Crime. Grabbing around the neck can be reasonable. It is a case-by-case basis and the honest held belief of the person using the force, if they felt that that was the only way. Only a court can say if the force was reasonable, not the court of public opinion. Well, that's true. But that doesn't solve the immediate problem. And I would imagine that this morning the police are going to be out in force in Peckham, which you might say is another waste of their resources when they could be actually tracking proper criminals.
I read the pieces, Mike, and you can imagine what the BBC and the Guardian wrote on this. They took a certain angle which I don't think reflected facts.
But well, they're not keen on facts at the BBC.
No,
or
they
the
just
Guardian.
took such a ridiculous angle. What does the guy do? He's not trained. He's not. He's
also,
just trying to protect the shop
that he's protecting. Right? Simple. William Clouston is here. We're going to talk some more about law and order, but also some more about the migrant crisis, which has also got to do with law and order.